Visuals are a powerful tool for enhancing your presentation. But when technology gets involved, it ups the ante. Tonight, our final speaker will share some preparation steps for your consideration. Please help me welcome distinguished Toastmaster Nicholas Smith.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our welcome guests. Last week we had a presentation that used a projector at our club. We don't have that too often, but I know that once someone does that, more people will want to do it. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about some of the ways we can prepare to give a presentation when AV and technology are required. And it's a long laundry list. You can take notes. I will send this out to the club's WhatsApp chat later on. But I just sat down and said, what are the things that I would do to prepare for a talk if I had technology, screens, or whatever involved? And the first thing I would say is you always want to visit the site ahead of time if possible. Obviously here, we come here every week, that's one thing. But if you find yourself giving a presentation at a meeting hall or some other type of venue where you've never been before, find a way to be there ahead of time so that you can scope out the direction of the seating and where the screens are, where electrical outlets are, et cetera, et cetera. I was the AV and technical lead for the Toastmasters District Conference here for Southeast Florida in April. And you better believe I was insisting on getting into that ballroom months ahead of time so I'd know I have the right gear when I showed up to be able to hook up everything and can have my input on how the room would be arranged. So that's very important. Will you need an extension cord? Will you need a power strip to accommodate multiple pieces of equipment to plug in? Do you have tape to tape that down so people who are walking around aren't tripping over and damaging your equipment and hurting themselves? When you're visiting that site, if you're not bringing your own projector, do you have access secured to that equipment? Are you allowed to use it? Do you have passwords for the computer? Do you know how to turn on the projector if it's there? I found myself climbing on top of a table and turning on a projector that was in the ceiling at a recent leadership institute I was at. That was an interesting experience, but you never know what you're going to come across. But the enemy of a flawless presentation is surprises. So again, that site visit, getting there ahead of time, minimizes the chance of having a surprise and having that minimize your presentation. You want your audience to leave with your message, not remembering that you had technical follow-ups as you were giving your presentation. That's what all this is about. How about hooking up your equipment? If you're bringing your own laptop, do you have the right adapters and doohickeys to plug that laptop into the system that's in the facility if it's a building that already has their own facility? That's important. HDMI, maybe VGA, all these little connectors and doohickeys, you want to make sure you have those in place. What about sound? Do you have a presentation that requires you to play a video or some music? The presentation that we had last week was on a small projector. I know we didn't do sound last week, but I imagine a little speaker in that's probably not very loud, is it, Gail? And so if you have a video or sound in your presentation, you want to make sure you're going to be able to get that to a point where your audience can actually hear it. You know, a large amplified speaker, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes you will be relying on staff for an event. Imagine if you're running for office or something, you have staff that takes care of that. You want to, rely on those people. Feel free to use guilt and make sure they're doing these things for you if you're not doing it yourself. I'm going to teach a course this Saturday, and I absolutely can't get access to that room. But whoever's organizing the event is okay. Well, I need this, or it might not go right. Make sure to hold them accountable if you have staff. Will you need internet access if you're giving this presentation? I'm going to say this again and again that internet is a common breakage point. It's a point of failure. You don't want to rely on the internet for a presentation, but sometimes you can't help it, or it can be enhanced somehow. Get that Wi-Fi password or access ahead of time and make sure you have that. Are you going to use a little PowerPoint clicker remote control? And darn it, I brought it and I forgot to bring that little visual aid up with me here tonight. You can buy a PowerPoint clicker on Amazon for $10. It's like almost disposable at that price. I have the link. It'll be in this thing I send out in the WhatsApp chat. But I picked it up, and then you can have a little PowerPoint remote control to use with your presentation. But you should You should practice using the keyboard in case that little doohickey doesn't work for some reason. Driver errors, battery fails, it gets stepped on, ate by the dog. You want to be comfortable pressing the space bar, or using the right and the left keys, or pressing the B button to blank the screen, or F5 to make that presentation a full screen. You want to be comfortable doing this stuff, so practice, 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 right, ahead of time if you can. What about lighting? In this room, we have 3 switches, and usually the 2 left switches are the ones you turn off so that the room darkens enough so you can see this presentation, but it keeps some lights on there so that the audience can see you as a speaker. Every venue is different. Sometimes they'll have switches, sometimes they'll have some kind of stage lighting assembly, but you want to know about that ahead of time so you can deal with that so that it's working right for your presentation. And you want to coordinate with someone so they know the cues you're going to give to turn on those lights at the right time or turn those lights off at the right time. Right, David? He told me last week, gave me a great cue, and I was able to help him out with that. Make sure your laptop is not set to power down or spontaneously install a Windows update. Right? Windows 10, Windows 11, type in Windows Update in the little start menu. You can pause that for 7 days. I do it before I go on international trips too. I don't need my computer running a big long Windows update while I'm in France and having it break afterwards. That's not a good thing to have happen to you. What about failure of the power? You know, power can go out, or a bulb can break, or a cable cannot work the way you expect it. I recommend you be prepared to do your presentation low tech if at all possible, or have handouts, or have an easel, or have some kind of electronic way to disperse your materials if you feel they're necessary in case that projector just won't work, because that can happen as well. Learn how to use presenter mode in PowerPoint. This is the mode where when you start the presentation, there's one thing on your laptop screen that shows the next slide and the timer, and your presentation's full screen on the projector. Sometimes people start their presentations and those things get flip-flop. So play around with that. Plug it into a monitor at home if you have one, and figure out how to use that stuff to your advantage. Finally, how does your presentation end? Will it be a slide that has your contact details and a little QR code people can scan to connect with you in LinkedIn? Or will it just be a black screen that says your presentation has ended? Think about that and have that work best to your advantage. As I said, it's a gamble. It's important to, if you have AV, it enhances your message, but it can go terribly wrong, and you don't want people remembering your presentation because it failed. So what can you do? Prepare, practice, prepare, practice, prepare, practice, and know what's going on with the venue you're going to be presenting in. And your presentation with AV will hopefully go stunningly, swimmingly. Madam Toastmaster.